Hey guys, so I know it's kind of been a little while. I've been taking a little bit of a break, but we're back. And one of the biggest reasons is we are on the road to WrestleMania, right? So let's just kind of recap what's gone on throughout the week. We're not going to go over maybe every little thing, but mainly just the storylines that are leading up to our WrestleMania matches. So, and there were several big things that happened on Monday Night Raw, but we opened up with a segment that has kind of gone both ways with fans, and that was Stone Cold Steve Austin's music hitting to start the show, and everyone in the arena was sure Stone Cold was there, and they were so excited, right? Because he's not announced for it, no one is expecting this, so for him to just show up would be amazing. That was not to be. It was just Kevin Owens dressed as Stone Cold. And a lot of them were very upset about this, that he tricked them in that fashion. But that is typical Kevin Owens, and it is why he's such an amazing heel. Honestly, in my opinion. To truly sell this feud that he's got going on, to make this match or whatever it is going to be there at WrestleMania truly something that we can't wait to see. And it catches my interest even more so when he's portraying Stone Cold with the music, the look, even just the actions in the ring. I thought it was a very great way to kind of continue to set up that match, or whatever it's going to be, honestly. We don't really know what it's going to end up being. So that was that segment. That was kind of the interaction that we saw progressing that storyline. We're then going to move on to Seth, who does not really have a storyline or anything set for WrestleMania. And it appears as though he's going to try to take over the show. Whether that's this week, next week, or whatever. He's demanding to have some kind of match, some kind of interaction at the show of shows. It's very hard to have WrestleMania without Seth Rollins. And the only year that we haven't had Seth Rollins on there was when he was injured, which is a legitimate reason to not be on that show and to miss it, right? This had several people hollering or chanting Cody, because so many expect Cody Rhodes to show up and be that opponent for Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. And he may or may not. I don't really know whether I believe he's going to be or not. If you want to have that match, you want to somewhat hype it up, and to some degree you are, but you're having Seth do all of that work in hyping that up, right? And you're not having Cody on there at all to really show that that's happening. And it is very possible for them to have Seth come out at WrestleMania and have Cody then come out and have them have that match without anyone necessarily being told that it's going to be Cody, without it ever actually being in writing, right? So there's that. We are going to have, we had the Mysterios taking on the Dirty Dogs. In this, so Ray had his mask removed by Miz. Now, this is what moves this storyline along. Okay, because right now, for WrestleMania, we have The Miz teaming up with Logan Paul to take on the Mysterios. And so at this point now, Miz has this mask of Rey's, and he's gifted it, I guess, to Logan Paul. I guess I didn't realize that there was any connection really between Miz and Logan, but it's an interesting connection. It works, I guess. So when Seth was out there earlier, he was having some issues with his mic. And I think that was storyline. I don't think it was any technical things. Because then there was the interaction with him back there with Sonya and Adam Pearce. He's looking for his match. He still wants to see what is going to end up happening with him. So let's pause there and let's also digest what has happened over social media today. And whether it's all storyline, which clearly it is, but whether or not they're going to bring any of it to TV or not, we don't know. But apparently over Twitter today, there was, and I don't know if it necessarily came from Vince, but someone in upper management there at WWE requested that Seth Rollins make an appearance at headquarters. They wanted to see him. So there's going to be some kind of meeting, and this is supposed to happen at some point before Monday Night Raw, I do believe. I don't think it's going to happen during Raw. They may air some of the footage of it, maybe. We don't know when exactly it's gonna take place, but so there's going to be some kind of meeting. There's going to be something there. So we did have Omos taking on Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz. This really isn't necessarily leading anywhere where it pertains to WrestleMania, maybe except potentially the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which I guess is going to be coming back. I don't remember if they did a smaller version of it last year with the pandemic going on. It was hard to really have that match, especially when we did have fans back last year. Yes, but it's hard when you don't want that many people together, and especially now you're asking 30 men and 30 women to get in the ring, right? So we then had our introduction. We then had interaction between Edge and AJ. Well, I should say it was more just AJ Styles, because Edge is not there. But he essentially is calling Edge out and kind of moving that storyline along with AJ calling him a coward. That moves that on a little bit more. I don't... With Edge being this heel character in this, I don't know how I feel about it, but it's okay. It's fine. So at this point, okay, so this is where we get the AJ Styles versus Seth Rollins. Um, this will be Rollins' last chance. So, this is where we get more information as far as that goes, right? So, we're going to kind of pause there. I'm going to move ahead from kind of where we're at here. We're going to move toward the end really quick. So, what ends up happening is AJ and Seth are having their match. This is Seth's last chance on that WrestleMania card. At least as far as this goes. AJ did end up winning the match through a disqualification. And that came from Edge, who was indeed there. So we close out this show with Seth going berserk, essentially. He didn't know what else to do. I mean, that was supposed to be his last chance at potentially WrestleMania. So now at this point, we don't really know. We could end up with Cody. We might not. But that moves that storyline along, and it moves on Seth Rollins' storyline with whatever he ends up doing at WrestleMania. We now are going to get Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley taking on Shayna Baszler and Natalya. Now, so Carmella is at the announce table, and she's kind of going on to Corey Graves about what happened with Zelina. So Shayna Baszler and Natalya end up picking up the win. What this is going to do is add Shayna Baszler and Natalya to this match, which that may already have been a thing. I'm not really sure, but the important part of this is it moves along the storyline of Zelina Vega and Carmella, because you think you're seeing a fray in that team and that partnership, but they both end up slipping into the ring and attacking their challengers, basically essentially letting us know that they are on the same page and there is no fracture in that partnership. So we then see a little bit of Becky's attack on Bianca Belair from last week. She's carrying a steel chair, and she's going to end up sitting in the ring with it. We don't see Belair. She did not actually come out this week, but you know, that's kind of to be expected. I expect that this week we will see, coming week, so the go home show for Raw, we will see Belair. While it does appear as though she is injured, not significantly, or they wouldn't let her work the match. But what this means is that there is probably a good chance that she is not going to be winning the title. Because if she is injured, they're not going to want her to continue to work like that, especially as a champion. So, we get a backstage segment with Austin Theory. He's going to be taking on Pat McAfee. That should be kind of fun. Considering that Austin Theory has kind of been a protege of Vince McMahon. Vince has been kind of molding him, so to speak. And it was also Vince that invited Pat to have a match at WrestleMania. So it's kind of fun to see these two have that. I will be doing another video where we'll actually get into predictions and I'll actually get into who I think might end up winning this. We'll probably do that Saturday afternoon. So it probably will not be uploaded right by the start of WrestleMania. It'll probably be uploading at that time, but the video will have been done before WrestleMania starts. I do want to watch Friday Night SmackDown before I make that, because of, honestly, guys, the go home shows give you some information as to who may or may not win. It tells you a little more of the story, and that leads you kind of to making those better predictions, so to speak. So I want to wait and talk after SmackDown is done, but I do not get home until midnight. So being that I work until midnight, I will not, and I have to work at 8 a.m. Saturday. So I will not have time to do the prediction video before I start work Saturday. So we then see Finn Balor beat Austin Theory. It's a good win for Balor, and it allows McAfee to come down and kind of celebrate and things. So we then got to see the Alpha Academy attack the Street Profits, who they will be meeting in the ring. So RK Bro is going to be facing Alpha Academy, or they did on Raw here. But they're going to be facing Alpha Academy and the Street Profits in a triple threat match for WrestleMania. That is now confirmed. So we have a couple real interesting tag team matches. Multiple tag teams. So that's kind of fun. So we end up with RK Bro picking up the win here. I like the fact that they're going to end up keeping these guys together. We didn't really know whether or not that was going to happen. So we now have a mixed tag match, tornado style, with the 24/7 champion Dana Brooke. I do not hate Dana being the champion, I guess. But they took on Tamina and Akira Tozawa. It's been interesting to have the interaction between Akira Tozawa and Tamina. Tamina doesn't always get the time on TV that she maybe deserves. I don't think she's necessarily one of the best women on the roster, but this is giving her at least something to do, and it's getting her on TV. So in that respect, I don't hate it. So we then have Tamina carrying Akira Tozawa away. He's been hit. He's not really moving. So it looks like it was maybe a low blow somewhat. So Tamina carries him away. We don't really know how that goes on there, what ends up happening from there, but I'm sure that will continue on next week. So that's going to close out the show, because we already talked about the main event. And some people hated the way that Kevin Owens mocked Steve Austin. I think it moved the story along very nicely, and it got me more invested, I guess, in the match. So that's okay. Alright, we are going to move on over to SmackDown for this week. So, we start the show with Brock Lesnar. He is going to hang out in Roman Reigns' room. He was told that unless he was provoked, he was not allowed to have any interaction with Roman Reigns. So this takes us to last week on SmackDown when Roman didn't think that Brock Lesnar was going to be there. However, a text message then did come in that said there wasn't a delay enough that he was able to get in and land, and he was on his way. Roman and the rest of his entourage went to go get the heck out of there. And before they could, Brock Lesnar showed up with, I don't even know what this piece of equipment is called. Someone told me what the name of it was, but I honestly don't recall now. But it had these forks on it, and it literally went into the SUV, I think is what it was that they were in, and it lifted it and onto its side and everything. They eventually got out in this truck, but at any rate, he was told he was not allowed to have any interaction with him, so he decided he was going to go wait in Rowan's dressing room. He destroyed a bunch of stuff, did a lot of damage in there. That moves that storyline along pretty nicely. So what I want to pause and talk about here is what this is actually for. So they are doing not even necessarily a winner take all. This is a unification. That's the way they're building this, and that means that essentially there's going to be one title. And I don't really know how I feel about that. When you have two brands and you already have so many people that are in a position to challenge for that, it's hard to just have one main event championship, right? So I don't really know how I feel about them unifying that. But I'm willing to give it a shot and see how it goes and see what their process is from there. It could turn out okay. So we had Jimmy Uso taking on Shinsuke Nakamura. And so for the SmackDown title, we are going to be getting a one-on-one team match. So it's going to be the Usos versus Shinsuke and now I don't know why I can't think of his name. I don't know why I can't think of his name, but at any rate, Rick Boogs. There we go. That's it. At any rate, so we are going to get that match, and that is going to be one team versus one team. That's what we're going to get. And it should be a good match. I have to say, I wasn't sure what I thought of Rick Boogs as a competitor as opposed to someone that just essentially played Nakamura to the ring. He's done okay. He really has. And I don't know that it's time for them to put the titles on Shinsuke and Rick Boogs, but it's a possibility. We'll see where things go next week and kind of where they leave things there. So Shinsuke ended up picking up the win on this show, right? They did make another interesting announcement that I thought was really pretty cool. So every year when it comes to WrestleMania week, they give out what's called the Warrior Award. And this year they gave it to Shad Gaspard. He was involved in a loading incident. There was a squall. It sounds to me like the boat was capsized, and he could not physically rescue his son. He was physically unable to do so, but instead of allowing the rescue crews to get to him, he made sure that they got to his son first. I really feel like he understood that there was just not going to be a way for them to get to both of them. But of the two of them, he wanted to make sure that his son survived. He had much more of a life to live, and that's an incredible person, guys. So that was a great choice by WWE for that Warrior Award for this year. It truly was. So we have a little bit more on Corbin and Madcap Moss. So what WWE is doing right now is they are putting into the works the little bits and pieces here and there to split this team up. This is just not going to be a thing that continues. And that might not be a horrible thing. People were somewhat liking this Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss thing, but you can see the split coming with Corbin not being impressed with Madcap's jokes. And some of them are not necessarily great. They are kind of picking on Happy Corbin, so we'll see what happens there. So let's take a moment now, because this next one is Ridge Holland taking on what's supposed to be Kofi Kingston. So let's talk about what has happened. So first of all, we had Xavier Woods that was injured. He was out for quite some time. In that meantime, we had Big E that came in, and he worked with Kofi with some tag team matches and tag team action, kind of moving storylines along there. So last week, Big E was very seriously hurt. He is very lucky he was not paralyzed. He did break his neck. He did not need surgery, so that is something to be very thankful for. There is good reason to believe that he will be able to return at some point. Not probably anytime soon. He's still very much rehabbing the neck injury, but it is a good sign that he is able to move around, that he was not paralyzed, and that he does not need surgery. So the assumption was that Kofi Kingston would be taking on Ridge Holland by himself, with Sheamus and Butch at his side. So, guys, Butch, for those that have not necessarily been following, is Pete Dunne. Yes, they changed his name since he's been called up to SmackDown. I don't mind it. I think it's kind of neat. And here's the thing. So, Pete Dunne is just coming to this main roster, and he's just being introduced to somewhat this new audience. To some extent. I mean, you have NXT that has been on the same brand or the same channel as Raw, so he's kind of been exposed to some of that audience, but this is a way to get his character even more over, to build that character up. And honestly, Sheamus is not a bad person to work with in order to do that. And as long as you have Ridge Holland that's working with Sheamus as well, you have two guys from Ireland, from that area, right? And then you pair them with someone from England in Butch. That's a good match. You have three guys that are clearly not necessarily from the West here. They're making a name for themselves. They're being pretty vicious. I like it, and I think it's really getting Butch over, and it is getting Ridge Holland over. So, the exciting part of this was that it was supposed to be Kofi going up against Ridge Holland. But he announced that it was actually not going to be Kofi. And so then he asked, but who could it be? Who? None other than King Woods. Xavier Woods is back, and that is exciting to see. So we do not know what this means for Kofi and Xavier when it comes to WrestleMania. Nothing has been announced for them. They're not in any announced tag matches. And with Xavier just coming back this week, that gives him 2 weeks to really build up a storyline. But to some extent, they already have kind of been working on that with Kofi being able to continue that storyline. So, the potential is still there that they could do some kind of tag match there for them at WrestleMania. But none of that is official. So, we don't know exactly how that's going to play out. So, at any rate, Xavier Woods picks up the victory there, and then they get the heck out of Dodge. We get the video package with Roman in the car. He's telling Brock, you better be out of my locker room by the time I get there, or I'm going to make you bleed all over Manhattan. Yeah. We got a promo from Rondo, who is in the ring. She tried to call out Charlotte. She was not there. She came up on the video board. Moved that storyline along. I don't know how I feel about this whole match. I mean, they're building it up fairly decently, but I just don't feel like there's as much excitement there to see the match as there maybe should be. This is Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. We should be excited to see this match. And I feel like I'm just kind of like, meh, okay, yeah, it's going to be a good match, but with the viciousness that Becky has been showing of late with her injuring Bianca, and just it's more of a vicious side of Becky than we have seen, and it's more of a heelish side. I like it. So I somewhat am more excited to see that match than the Charlotte and Ronda match, which is kind of disappointing since Ronda was the Royal Rumble winner, and they're going to be the main event of night one, so we should be more excited for that match. It was a decent promo. Last week's was a little rough for Ronda. It was a little weak. This one was a little better. We had some action between Pat McAfee and Austin Theory there, chasing him around a little bit. Then we were going to talk about the contenders match for the Intercontinental Championship, because it was supposed to be Humberto Carrillo, and instead they took him, and that is Ricochet, and they put in Angel Garza. So with the help of Humberto Carrillo, Angel Garza picked the victory, which technically means Angel Garza should then receive an opportunity at the Intercontinental Champion. Before they could walk away, Ricochet demanded a match with Humberto Carrillo. Was this necessarily smart after you just been in the match? Maybe, maybe not. You already saw the one part of that team interfere. Why would it not happen again? Which it did. What's interesting, though, about this is that now Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza have now technically both beaten Ricochet, which means that there should be a championship match for both of them. And I believe we are looking at that happening potentially next week. but we will see. And it looks like that may end up being a triple threat match, which makes that very interesting that you have Angel Garza and Humberto, cousins, that are going to be competing against Ricochet. Only one of them can win. So, do they start to tease some tension between Humberto and Angel? Maybe. We'll see what happens with that, though. We then are going to see a tag match with, so there are 4 teams now involved in the women's tag match at WrestleMania. So we then got to see a match with 4 of those contenders, one person from each team. We had Zelina Vega, who is part of the tag team champions, Sasha Banks, who's teaming with Naomi at WrestleMania, but she competed by herself in this one. Rhea Ripley, who is teaming with Liv Morgan, but Rhea was in this match. And Shayna Baszler, who is teaming up with Natalya. A very interesting team up there. I like this. So, the women's division has been the tag division has been kind of weak. We haven't had a whole lot of women's tag teams. So, this is very interesting that it's very interesting that we're starting to get some new teams being put together, and we'll see if they take off or not. So far, they look good, and I'm willing to give it a shot, right? So Sasha Banks ends up with picking up the win for their team. We get Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman come out to the ring. They did not even go back to the locker room. They just went right to the ring. Then they went back to the locker room. They showed a video of it to see whether or not Brock was still in the room. He was not. They did find him through cameras, and he was on his way to the ring. He kind of snuck up on them, but we didn't really get much physical interaction. Most of it was Brock taking on security. So, but that was exciting. That moved that along. So there is going to be Andre the Giant Battle Memorial tournament again this year. So that's pretty cool. So the other thing that I kind of want to talk about before we end this video is some exciting news that has come up this week, and that is that excuse me, Triple H, who we've not seen for quite some time, has announced his official retirement from in-ring action. Honestly, this is okay. He's done a lot for this business. He has paid his dues way over more than he needed to. Between what he has done in the ring and what he has done in training people, training as far as in-ring action, as well as getting them used to mic skills and things like that, and helping them in learning how to build their characters and get their characters to be cared about by the fans and by the audience. So, honestly, he had heart issues, guys. That was what has been going on, what has kept him, for right now, out of that ring. And that's some serious stuff. You don't want to mess with it. And when he has children who are fairly young, you need to be there for them. It's not worth risking you not having another heart issue and not waking up after a procedure, right? So, best wishes to Triple H. And honestly, even not working in the ring, he can still help to move storylines along through management work, being that senior manager, that executive position within the company, and still just working backstage with these superstars. You can still very much lead them in how to get better on the microphone, move their storylines along, and just helping them in making the audience care about their characters and finding that passion in them for that character. Um, he still has so much to still give to this business, even if it isn't in the ring. So, best wishes to Triple H. I'm sure that we will still see an impact from him, even if it's not physically in the ring. So, that's the news for this week, and we have one more week till WrestleMania. We are literally less than a week away. By this time next week, we will be well on our way to day one of WrestleMania. So that's exciting news. I will be uploading this shortly, and I will see you guys again next week.